The government has set a target of treating more than 500,000 hospital patients in virtual wards by 2023 as a solution to tackling the bed shortage. Patients on virtual wards would be treated for conditions like dementia, heart failure and even cancer, receiving care remotely using kits like blood pressure monitors. Then they would upload the readings via an app to an online hub. So that's the plan, Judi. I mean, you've got experience working in healthcare, talking about your life. How do you feel about this?
You know, look, I know there is shortages when it comes to, you know, hospital staff and nursing staff and doctors, and I'm really concerned with the ability of some of the patients on how they're going to be able to monitor themselves to give the correct information. And then I know from being a social worker and, you know, working with other teams like the hospital team, what people don't realise, a lot of people that come into hospital, that's where you find other safeguarding issues, whether it's someone who is older and living by themselves and not coping properly, whether it's someone who's facing domestic violence and this is their chance to get to somewhere safe, even if it's for 10 hours, or a young child, which might be in, you know, things like abuse. So I'm concerned that those things will go out of the window in the sense of being missed, because we know that some things are missed anyway. So that's my real worry, you know. I find it difficult sometimes with the remote, much less your blood pressure, so on.
I know. I mean, I must say,
properly.
The dementia patients kind of leapt out to me. I thought, how are they going to do that one? Because obviously there is the patient with dementia, but also the pressure on the family. And it's often a single elderly carer, a wife or a husband, with someone with dementia, who is at the end of their tether. And can I need somebody to do that? And remind them. Rather than... We all get frustrated with technology, pushing buttons and... I mean, could you imagine your mum in that situation, Jay?
No, and I mean... You can think of certain situations where people do want to stay in their home, and for them that would be a great setup. But not one size doesn't fit all.
Exactly.
So then what you're thinking about is each case is going to have to be individually assessed as to whether that is suitable for them, which then adds a whole other tier of hard work for people in the NHS. I mean, I kind of feel it's like everyone's sat in a room and going, hey, this is a great idea, but they've not actually thought through what the implementation will be.
I must admit, I agree. It smacks of... And I'm not saying... And I know, you know, Gloria, that you have used these kind of things and you found them really good. But it does smack to me of consultants sitting in a room, looking at a paper exercise and thinking, yeah, that'll work. But actually, human beings, we are funny creatures, aren't we? We're not always logical, we're not always reasonable, we're often scared, particularly when we're ill. We don't always react in the predictable ways. And I'm just not sure if it's going to be as neat a solution as they obviously would hope it would be. But you see some advantages.
No, I don't think it's the ultimate solution. And what bothers me is the reason for doing it. Because sadly, as you rightly say, whether it's your GP practice, whether it's hospital, everybody's understaffed and underfunded, really. So I'm assuming that the reason this has even been swung into action is actually to save on the staff and to make life, in some ways, a bit easier for the medical staff, but not necessarily, I don't think, for the individual. I do think in some cases it would work. It just depends what it is. I don't think you can deal with heart disease, for example, like that. But I have used the system whereby I was on a shoot once and I had a really bad sore throat and couldn't speak. Big problem for me not being able to speak. But anyway, the team managed to get a GP or a doctor online. And actually, see, for that, it was easy because he gave me a prescription. I took the prescription and, hey, presto, it worked. But I would be uneasy about this virtual hospital because even when I had my recent fall, you know, a couple of months back, although I have to say NHS was fantastic. And because I was done right from here to right down my body, they did my brain, they did my leg. But there were other things that I felt afterwards that were really sore and I wanted checked. So I actually paid for those myself to get doubly checked. So I'm one of those people where I want the doctors and I, in a way, want the hospital back up. So I don't know how good I would be in...
And a lot of people can't afford to pay, can they?
Well,
to
that's absolutely
sort of-
true. I agree.
But
with that. I'm just saying
also-
that's my nature.
Yeah, I also wonder legally where they would stand as well, because if suddenly they say, well, what you've got you can treat at home, blah, 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 and something goes wrong or something, as you say, safeguarding issue or whatever, even if it's a medical issue, doesn't get picked up, how do they then, you know, somebody might turn around and say, well, if I'd come into hospital, you might have picked that up and I might not have terminal X.
I mean, there are
whatever.
concerns about it. We've got a rights group called Silver Voices saying that relying on smartphones and app to provide healthcare immediately excludes millions, particularly older people.
Yeah.
But not only older people,
Young
and I think
people
you're
as well.
right, some of whom won't have internet access, others who are not comfortable using the
I
technology.
mean, how hard is it now already to speak to a human being on any level in life?
And the thing is, as well, is when you talk about people that are caring for people, what we don't realise is that a lot of carers need support as well.
Yes.
It's such a big thing. If you've been doing something like engineering and your wife is not well, you've never become a carer. I just think, how far is this whole self-service going to go? Self-service now, tills in the shops, now it's going to be self-service your medical care. And it might not work.
Yeah.
But as soon as anybody
says
says the word app to me to get the results, I go, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
I mean, well, Charlotte takes a different view. She says for more minor conditions, it could be a solution, especially with the rising cost of fuel, hospital parking. It cost me nearly 20 quid, she says, to park when I stayed overnight in my local hospital.
That's another subject.
Which was a joke. So I suppose in particular set of circumstances, you can see it. But I really take your point, Jane, in that if they introduce this wholesale, you can see them then having to introduce a whole new level of bureaucracy and organisational, which again makes it clunky and needs
assessors.
people. It kind of feels very sticking plasterish, doesn't it? Rather than standing back and looking at the
Whereas
system
if you
as a
actually
whole.
just get GPs back full-time, lots of GPs back full-time seeing people face-to-face, more nurses in hospitals, pay them better, you might just find it works quite well.
Yeah, but where we're going to get them from. But anyway...